Okay. Here I am. I'm gonna try to do another Magic the Gathering deck tech. This is another Commander, because I only play Commander. This is Ayli, Eternal Pilgrim. I think, what was it, Josh Lee Kwai from the Command Zone once said that Ayli just sounds Scottishly drunk. She's a 2/3 for 2, 1 white, 1 black. Core Cleric. Those don't really matter. It's not like Cleric Tribal or Core Tribal, really. This is just a life gain deck. Mainly how we gain life in this deck is to have Ayli out on the field and use her first ability here to just start gaining life. And once we get to high enough life point, just start removing things on the board to kind of break through. And hopefully through politics what we do is we use this to let our allies in the game to break through before we, betray them at the end of the game. Or maybe just take second place, because second place, it's still fun. Next up is the lands. Got Command Tower, Orzhov Basilica, Temple of the False God, Caves of Koilos, Scarred Barrens, Orzhov Guildgate. I know some people don't really like running things like the Guild Gates and like Forsaken Sanctuary. I don't have a lot of money. And this sometimes, even if it's just a tap land, comes in, it just helps to have the 2 options instead of just having like a plains and a swamp. Drifted Meadow, another stand-in for a plains, but it has cycling. Cycling can help if I'm trying to dig through my deck at any point in time. Same with Secluded Steeple. Secluded Steep. I don't know why I always put the L at the end of this one, but I do sometimes. Barren Moor, same thing, basically. New Benalia, try and fix the top of the deck if we don't have any card draw. Do try to hold on to this in my hand. I don't always play this land immediately, mainly for that specific reason. Same with Mortuary Mire, another sort of like utility land, puts things from your graveyard on top of your deck. Reliquary Tower, there is a Necropotence in this deck, and having that no maximum hand size helps me not like just chuck cards into exile. Cabal Stronghold, because this just generates a bunch of mana, and sometimes we just need a bunch of mana in this deck. Grand Colosseum for more fixing. Exotic Orchard for fixing just in case. Gargoyle Castle. This is a colorless land, but it is also a flyer if I need it to be. Plus it's a 3/4. Sacking this land while it's a creature and gaining 4 life is not the worst thing in the world. Memory to the Folly, another reanimator. Evolving Wilds, because Evolving Wilds. And then plains, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plains. And then swamp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 swamp. Next up is our Planeswalkers. First we have Liliana Vess. Removing cards from players' hands, even if that's at random. In Commander, usually every card counts because it's singleton. So, like, removing just any one card, a lot of people go, oh, that's not the worst. Like, that's well, no. Usually people go, hey, that's not really the best thing in the world. Oh, it's so underrated. Doing that is so underrated. Also, like, Diabolic Tutor, and then just reanimate everything out of your opponent's graveyard. Especially after you've, like, used Ayli to put one of their big creatures in the graveyard. You've got a Lily about to ultimate. Feels so good. Soren Markov, OG Soren. He's in the deck for one reason and one reason only. That second ability. You put him out on the field. If somebody's hit you during the game, you immediately just drop that person to 10 life. That's it. That's all you really care about with Soren. You want to just do that. If he sticks around, you can get him up again. That sounds great. If you can take control of one of your opponent's turns, that's great. But really, all you want to do is do this and let your opponent use a removal spell to just take him out. That's all you really want to do. And then flip Liliana. She's great because there's it's super easy to flip her. Plus she's you can swing with her to gain life. On her backside, more discard, more reanimator, just more reanimator. We do play some cards that a lot of creatures that we just want to bring back constantly because we're always sacking our creatures. So it's good to have all these reanimator options. Josu Vess, 4 mana for 4/5. We don't pay 4 mana for him though. You always want to pay this kicker because that way you get 8 2/2 black zombies that you can start sacrificing to Ayli to gain a bunch of life. That's pretty much the only reason Josu Vess is in this deck. It's to sack all the zombies he makes to gain life. Bravo Soul Tender. Buffs creatures, so when you sack your creature, you gain more life from it. Also, if you ever do have to go onto the offensive, it is +1/+1. It's not just +0/+1. So going on the offensive, it's just a good anthem across the board. Plus he reanimates. Well, he doesn't reanimate, but he puts creature cards from my graveyard into my hand. That's always a pretty good deal because I'm always going to be sacrificing things. Avra Halcyon. If it gets super bad, just switch, or even if it's just you need that little extra bump. Sinking 4 mana into her and exchanging your life total. If you're at, say, 20, you could put yourself at 4 life. Or, sorry, not 20. If you're at 10, you switch it around. She has power toughness of 10, you have 4 life, and you swing with her. You go up to 14 life, and that's a little bit more of a buffer, It feels good to have a little bit of extra life and being able to do this. It is at instant speed that you're able to do this, and it feels good to have. It's kind of like a silver bullet whenever you need it. Crick, son of Yawgmoth. I am most certainly pronouncing that name wrong. We are gaining a lot of life. It's pretty nice to put this life to use on all of our black spells. We can just start paying life for them. And it just keeps on making Crick bigger. He's got lifelink. Whenever he swings in, we'll be gaining all that life back. It's just a feel-good card. That's all it is. Torgar, Famine Incarnate. This is mainly for his Enter the Battlefield ability. After that, I know he's a 7/6, but you still want to sack him. We aren't really attacking in this deck. We're kind of defending. So you can either block with him, or you just sack him and you immediately gain the 6 life after you essentially deal 20 damage to somebody. Hopefully you deal 20 damage to somebody. Sometimes it's less. Ray of Dawnbringer. Once again, we are sacrificing creatures. Ray of Dawnbringer does bring them back from the graveyard into play, which is a lot better than our hand or on top of our deck. She is a 9-drop, but sometimes late game, it's just what you need. You have a bunch of big creatures in your graveyard, maybe 1 or 2 at that point. You plop her down, and it just feels so good putting big creatures onto the battlefield and then sacrificing them for more more life in this deck, and that's all you want to do. Artifacts, that is all the legendary creatures. Now we're on to artifacts. Soul Ring, every commander deck runs Soul Ring. Arcane Signet, you're kind of dumb if you don't run an Arcane Signet in your deck now. Commander Sphere, it is card draw and ramp. So if something's doing two things at once, that's kind of a good deal in Commander. Same thing with Mind Stone, ramp and card draw. Seer's Lantern, it's ramp and also like fixing the top of the deck. Whenever you go to draw a card, it does help filtering through later in the game, just kind of shipping lands off to the bottom if you don't need them. Or trying to dig for lands. That's Scry 2, even if it's just once a turn, it does help you find lands. Orzhov Locket, early game ramp basically. Later in the game when you have mana to throw at it, it does draw you 2 cards. And then Armelian Sphere, just more mana ramp. Lightning Greaves. Ayli is a big target. Everyone knows what you're doing when you're playing Ayli. Getting Lightning Greaves on her is a big way to protect her. Plus, if you really need to get that early game swing, nobody has some blockers, this is pretty good. You aren't really going for commander damage, but it's good to get somebody back if something has happened to you. It's basically like a political tool. Mimic Vat, like it's Mimic Vat. Let's see here. Ayli exiles things, but we do have targeted removal. You do have things with Death Touch. If we block with Ayli with something and trade for it, we have Mimic Vat on the field. We just take it. It's a big creature. We just throw our small commander with Death Touch in front of it. We can play our commander again, and we get a big creature out of it with the Mimic Vat. So Mimic Vat, always good, always will be good. Ugin's Nexus, I mean, like, stopping extra turns. And with a lot of people like to do extra turn stuff whenever I at my LGS. So this is kind of my defense against that with my play group. Now onto the creatures. Soul Mender, not the biggest thing in the world. You're gaining 1 life a turn. Some people don't like it. I like it. It's consistent, and it does fly under the radar a little bit, you know? It's not the best card ever. That's kind of the point. Nobody goes and looks at Soul Mender and goes, man, I have to get rid of that. And that's kind of the point. You just want him to sit there on the battlefield, just keep gaining you life all the time, and nobody looks at him. It feels so good. Johnny's Pridemate, you're getting all this life, might as well make a big creature out of it. That's what a Johnny's Pridemate is here for. 2/2 for 2, comes down early game basically, and then you just start gaining life. Angel of Vitality, she comes down early game. Hopefully you're not below 25 life. You do start at 40. Plus a little bit of life gain boost, and she's probably always going to be a 4/4 unless you're like losing the game. Plus flyer, and fly, like, great blocker. Great blocker. Boris Charger. Once again, not a lot of mana ramp in this deck. This is one of the ways that mana ramps nowadays. Tech in, find planes. That's basically it. Loxodon Life Changer, or Chanter, pardon me. If you're really low on life and you have a bunch of creatures out on the field, you can't sack them because Ayli's not out for some reason, pardon me. Loxodon Life Changer is how you get back up. This brings you back from the brink every time. Twilight I can't pronounce that. I don't know. It's probably Shepherd, but it's PH is an F sound, so I don't. Anyways, basically easy way. If you sack a bunch of creatures in a turn, still have some mana left over. Well, a lot of mana left over. This just gets all the creatures you just sacrificed back, and that is a good feeling. Feldar Sovereign, one of our alternate win conditions. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 40 or more life, you win the game. Cards that say you win the game are good. You play those cards. Simple as that. Sunblast Angel. Sunblast Angel, you play her. I don't know why Sunblast Angel is a her. I shouldn't assume the gender. But you play Sunblast Angel, and it's a board wipe. It's a board wipe on the stick. And next turn, or in the turn that you play it, you drop down Ayli, and you gain the 5 life immediately. Or you let it stick around if you're playing against a deck with a lot of flying in it. You keep it around for a blocker. It's a very versatile card. It's big, sort of like change the board instantly. That's what it does. And then Sarah Avatar, one of our 7 drops. Its power and toughness are equal to its life total. Hopefully our life total is always above 40. Plus, this way, there's less of a chance to deck out with Sarah's Avatar in it. It's not guaranteed. Don't deck out. It's not like Elixir of Immortality, but it is a slight defense against it. To our black creatures, we've got Doomed Necromancer. Sacrifice it to return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. This is another late game, low casting card. If you want to bring back a big creature, this is how you do it. Sangromancer. We aren't really making our opponent discard, but we will be like basically vindicating our opponent's creatures, and well, all permanents, but creatures are permanents. So whenever a creature card gets put into the graveyard, we do gain 3 life with Sangromancer. Plus, it's a flyer, and that's good for blocking. Demon Lord of Ashmouth. I know a lot of people don't play this card. They don't like this card. I like it. I liked the Undying mechanic. I really did. This is basically a card. You get to sack it twice because of Undying. We'll bring it back. Plus, it'll have an extra point of toughness when it comes back. And that's always good for Ayli when you're sacking creatures. Only downside to it, it's a low cost for big body. You have to exile this creature unless you don't sacrifice another creature when it enters the battlefield. Disciple of Bolas enters the battlefield. This is kind of one of our card draw cards. You sack a creature, and you draw X cards and gain X life, or X the converted mana cost. This is another, you want to try to drop this late game when you have big creatures on board. Mortivore. It's basically Tarmogoyf but in black, and with a regenerate clause, and it just costs more. And, you know, Tarmogoyf is good. So this, even if this is a little bit different, it's like Tarmogoyf, and I'm going to play a card like Tarmogoyf. Risen Executioner. There aren't a lot of zombies in this deck, but this is an aggressive card if I need to be aggressive. And I will always be I can just reanimate this card from my graveyard whenever I want to sack it if need be, which is good. Raving Dead. This is a good way to get opponents' life totals down super quick, because when it hits, it deals, let's see here, when it hits the player, that player loses half of their life total, which is super good no matter what, usually, unless they're at 2 life, and then you're doing less damage than what its power is. Gary, Gray Merchant, if you don't know, everybody calls this card Gary. He's Gary. Everybody knows what Gary does, so I don't have to explain Gary. Archfiend of Depravity. This card basically hits token decks. If we want to keep our opponent low on creatures so they can't attack a whole bunch and kill our creatures in combat, that's what this card is here for. Phyrexian Delver, another Reanimator card. Dread, another an anti deck me out card. Also, Fear is really good for attacking. 6 power attacker. Taking 6 damage a turn when you don't have any artifact or black creatures out. Not the best feeling in the world. This could take a player out of the game. Harvester of Souls. Whenever a non-token creature dies, you may draw a card. Usually this is for us. Whenever we sack a creature to Ayli, we can draw a card out of it with Harvester of Souls. Whenever we kill one of our opponent's creatures as well with one of our death-touching blockers or anything, we also draw a card from that, which is good. Soul of Innistrad. It's another Reanimator plus a good blocker with the Death Touch. Champion of Stray Souls, another great Reanimator, plus put it from the graveyard on top of your deck. You always have a card in your deck this way. Runescarred Demon is basically Demonic Tutor on a stick, on a 6/6 flying stick. Once you play it, it's just a blocker or an attacker. It's kind of versatile in that way. It's not, you just play it for the one turn and then it just kind of does whatever you want. And then Overseer of the Dam. It's targeted removal, plus you start making bodies with it, 2/2 zombies, which you can start sacking to Ayli to gain life. Kingpin's Pet. Extort is always good whenever you cast a spell, pay white or black, gain a life. Gaining life is good in this deck if you couldn't tell. Plus it's a flyer so it can block. Ashen Rider. It's single target remover on a stick, plus fire, flyer, plus big body equals good stuff. Skittering Surveyor, mana ramp plus 2 toughness, good to sack to Ayli. Desolator Twins. You play this card late game when you have 12 mana open. Not when you have 10. You don't play it when you have 10 mana. I know it's a 10 drop. You play it when you have 12. It's because you play it and you immediately sack both the Desolator Twin and the Desolator Twin token to Ayli to just gain 20 life. That's half your starting life total in Commander. This card is just that good. Idyllic Tutor. I've got a number of pretty good enchantments in this deck. I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but this finds any enchantment, that I need in any given moment. Usually we go find Necropotence with this card because it's Necropotence. But yeah, this is just a good tutor. Route is another board wipe because we need board wipes. Reverse the Sands. This is a political card. I don't know how many people usually play Reverse the Sands, but if we're low on life, this puts us back at 40. If we have an ally in the game, they're about to drop out of the game they're about to lose the game on the next turn, we can just put them back at 40 life with this card and be like, you owe me even more now. Bankrupt in Blood is card draw. Ancestral Recall, so good. If you pay 1 more for it, still good. Even if you're sacking 2 creatures to it, still kind of good. Unburial Rites, Reanimator, you get to do it twice. Nightmare and Manking, another board wipe, simple as that. Promise of Power, this is mainly for the card draw. but you can make a decent body out of it that you can sack to Ayli if you have the mana. Necromantic Selection, another board wipe, pardon me. Army of the Dam, it makes 13 2/2s that you can then sack to Ayli, plus they're also great blockers. Profane Command, it's just a versatile, really good card that needs to go in like every black deck. Instance, Diabolic Edict, target player sacrifices a creature. This is a way to get around like Hexproof and Indestructible and Shroud. That's what this is here for. Utter End, exile target non-land permanent. Also gets around like Indestructible. Now, yeah, two single targeted removal. Ayli usually single target removes things in this deck. Now, Blind Obedience. This is basically here to slow down our opponent, but it also gains us life whenever we cast a spell, which is pretty nice. Ghostly Prison. Once again, it's Ghostly Prison. It's kind of a staple in a lot of commander decks. Tainted Remedy. If our opponent, this is like our anti-life gain card. If one of our opponents tries to gain life, hopefully this is out on the battlefield and we can cause them to lose life instead. Pardon me. We are sacking a lot of creatures. This allows us to draw cards. We don't really care about the life loss because we're gaining life from sacrificing our creatures. Whenever a creature dies, we gain life equal to their toughness. It's just one less than their toughness, plus we draw a card. I'd say that's a fair trade. Necropotence. Everybody loves Necropotence. Skip your draw step. Oh no. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. Oh no. Pay 1. Exile the top card of your library face down. Beginning of your next put that card into your hand at the beginning of your next end step. You just pay a whole lot of life. And make sure you have Reliquary Tower out on the field. Necropotence is just that good. Ethereal Absolution buffs our creatures, debuffs our opponent's creatures. It's kind of like anti-aggressive deck. Also, it's anti-graveyard deck. You can start exiling cards out of your opponent's graveyard if they're a graveyard deck. And that's basically what this is. And then finally, Necromancer's Covenant. This is just a good card. I just think it's a good card. Whenever the enchantment enters the battlefield, exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard that I put 2/2 zombies onto the battlefield. That's just more sacrifice fodder for Ayli, or it's a game finisher to just swing out into an opponent and take them from whatever life total they're at to 0. And that is Ayli, the Eternal Pilgrim.